Welcome to the Seeker's Compass. We're so happy you've joined us today. Let me give you a little background on our program here. We are an outreach of Faiths Seminary International, which offers a number of degreed programs: Interfaith Minister, Master of Divinity, Doctor of Divinity, and additionally, you can choose to focus in one of four core areas: comparative religions, A Course in Miracles, mysticism, and Judaic studies. We also have additional electives that students can take on different subjects throughout the year. And by the way, at All Faith Seminary, we define a mystic as anyone who is consciously on the path seeking to know the divine. So you likely are all mystics. How about that? Our mystical curriculum here at AFSI also includes interviews with modern mystics. And that's what the Seeker's Compass is all about. We find individuals who have had a lot of depth and time and experience on their path, and we interview them, and they tell us about their experience. And today is part of that program. And it's also included in the mystical curriculum, and we offer it to the public at no or low cost. And I would now like to introduce our wonderful speaker for today, and that is my dear friend, Raphaelle Tamura. I am so delighted to have you here with us today, Raphaelle. In addition to her being a world-renowned spiritual leader, teacher, healer, and clairvoyant, she has been a dear friend for a very, very long time. And for the last 40 plus years, Raphaelle has guided countless people on paths of self-discovery and transformation. A longtime student of A Course in Miracles as well. Like many of us, it has informed much of her spiritual path. Raphaelle, I was thinking about this before the Compass, that I initially met you back in 1990, and you were the first person, my first teacher that actually taught me how to meditate. And I loved the class so much, I signed up for everything that was offered. And between you and your amazing husband, Michael Tamura, you two were some of my most significant mentors on my spiritual journey.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And it is my hope for everyone here today that Raphaelle's unique wisdom, her insight, her tools will help you on the path. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to the incredible Raphaelle Tamura.
Thank you very much. And it's quite an honor to be here. Thank you very, very much. And it's so great to see so many of you signing in and also participating in this wonderful group. Bud asked me to do a beginning meditation. That's what you'd like me to do first, right?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Take us and this is a treat, folks. You will now get an experience of meditation as I do it and as I've learned it. Over to you, Raphaelle.
Of course, the beginning meditation course is a 6-week course, so I'm going to jam it into 10 or 15 minutes here. And some of you may be familiar with it because part of my background is my 12 years at the Berkeley Psychic Institute. Let's get this going. And again, I'm really pleased to be here. The style of meditation that I teach is an active meditation, which is not being, trying to get quiet in your head, but actually giving you little tasks to do. So we'll start with the best form to be in, rather than laying down or sitting on the floor, is being in a chair for this type of meditation. I'm very familiar with other types as well, but for this type, with your feet on the floor and not with your legs crossed and your eyes closed. So if you'll give yourself a nice breath, just breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your mouth, and just be quiet for a moment. This is the only time you get to be quiet in your head, because I'm going to direct you to do a few things. So the first thing, of course, is your spirit in a body, and some of us tend to float up and out of the body. So if you'll just say hello to bringing your attention point, which is your awareness, right behind your forehead in the center of your head. The way I used to teach beginners is to have them put a line through your head just above the ears and a line through the head in front of and behind the forehead, and right in the middle there is the center of your head. And if you could imagine when you come into the center of your head that you're in a beautiful room in there. In fact, let's create a room that's like a theater with a screen in the front. And what I'm having you do is I'm having you come right into the space of where you can be clairvoyant. And I will say, imagine this and imagine that, because that's the space that you know how to use from your childhood, imagining making mud pies and that sort of thing. So would you imagine that you're a little mini you sitting in a theater in the center of your head, facing forward to a beautiful theater screen? And it's the most beautiful theater you've ever been in. And just let yourself settle into there. And from that space, would you say hello to your first chakra, which is at the base of your spine, your root chakra? Send a hello down there. I'm going to assume you all know what a chakra is up to this point. And would you also send a hello down to the center of the earth? And the center of the earth doesn't have to look like molten lead or molten iron or whatever it is down there. Let's imagine the center of the earth is like a beautiful island surrounded by water or something like that. And from the center of your head, would you create a connection from your first chakra to the center of the earth? The imagery I like to use is a redwood tree trunk, and the top part of it is chopped off and connected to your first chakra. And there's an opening in the middle of that, and it goes all the way down to the center of the earth and has roots into that island in the center of the earth. And you might notice as you're creating that grounding that a part of your attention goes down there to the center of the earth. So bring it back up to the center of your head. And just imagine that grounding cord, I ground from the first chakra because that's your survival chakra. It helps you to release any energy that has you worried about things and, wanting to run around and all that sort of thing. And it just lets you release energy of survival so you can just be here in this present moment. Now be in that theater room in the center of your head. Give yourself a nice breath. Breathe in, breathe out, and just say hello to your space, to your energy field, to your physical body, and just let any energy you're ready to release go down the center of that grounding cord, and the force of gravity will pull it out of your space. And this would be any energy that's not yours. You don't have to worry about your own energy going down that grounding, because it's like imagining a bathtub going down its own drain. Just imagine any energy you're ready to release. And if you have any little pains or things like that, let's say a lower back pain, the way I see pain is it's where we've grabbed onto energy that's not ours, and it's being held by a part of you. So if you imagine that there's these little fists around your space holding energy, just like you would open up your hands, go ahead and open up those little fists and let that grounding cord take the energy down. And breathe. And some of you might even feel that force of pulling that energy out of your space. And as you release energy, what I'd like you to do is imagine above your head a nice giant golden sun the size of your space. And this sun isn't a hot sun like our physical sun, but just a golden sun. And this golden sun is like a magnet. It pulls in all the energy you left behind from this morning or even from the astral plane last night. And you start to fill up that gold sun with your energy. And then you can command that gold sun. This is your energy up here. So you can command that gold sun to come in down through your crown chakra. And as you bring this gold sun into your body, you're filling up all the areas where you just released energy from. So starting with your crown chakra, the sixth chakra, fifth chakra in your throat, fourth chakra, third chakra in the chest, second chakra around the belly button, first chakra. And then you can expand that gold sun to fill up your physical body, your head, neck, and shoulders, your arms and your fingertips, your entire torso, front and back, including your spine, down your legs to your toes. And just breathe that energy in. That's your energy. And then let that energy expand out into your aura. And any time during the time I'm lecturing or anyone's talking, you can always fill up with the gold sun. Because a lot of times you'll release energy, and Mother Nature likes not a vacuum. So if you fill in with your own energy, then you'll be able to have your energy with you and you won't get tired. And then the next two things I'd like you to do is, would you say hello to your feet chakras? The feet right around the middle of your feet, your arches of your feet. And would you just imagine your feet chakras opening up? They're your feet chakras. So you can open them and close them just like you open and close your hand. And then send a hello down into the earth, let's say about 5 miles. Let's go down, let's say 20 miles down. You want to go past the earthquake zone for those of us in earthquake zones, and that seems to be all over the place these days. You don't want to bring in earthquake energy. We're going to use 2 different energies to continue to move energy out of your space while you're in this class today. So say hello to earth energy and imagine seeing a beautiful pond of earth energy, and please don't make it brown or black like dirt. Ask your body what color earth energy you would like. Maybe you'd like a beautiful blue color or an orange or a lavender or something like that. And bring, just from saying hello to the pond of earth energy beneath your feet, about 20 miles, bring up 2 streams of earth energy, and you just command it up. It's no effort, it's energy, so you can work with it this way. Bring it up in 2 streams, and 1 stream goes into your left foot, and 1 stream goes into your right foot, and just spills into your feet. It's very healing. And we're going to use this earth energy mostly for the lower part of the body. So bring that earth energy up to your ankles. And then would you have that earth energy come up through the channels? You're not going to fill your entire legs with the earth energy, but it goes through a natural channel that goes through your legs up to your knees, where it gets refined as it goes through the knee chakras and comes through the knee chakras and comes up through the upper legs and into the lower part of the body, and then curves inward towards the first chakra, and then hooks into the first chakra, filling up the first chakra from bottom to top, and then spilling over and going down the grounding cord. And what the purpose of this energy running right now, and the secondary energy I'm going to have you run in a minute, is kind of akin to using a hose to hose off your driveway. It's just helping you to continue to clean energy out as you meditate. Okay? So let that energy run, and we're going to use a little bit of this energy in the upper body, but just a little bit, because it's a rougher energy and it works better in the lower part of the body. That's why it feels so good to run in the grass. You run this energy to clear energy. Okay, so the second energy is what we call the cosmic energy. The cosmic energy is the energy that holds everything together in this cosmos. And how I'd like you to reach out for some cosmic energy is, imagine just beyond our solar system is a giant golden ball of cosmic energy. It's so big that it could supply everyone on Earth with cosmic energy. So it won't run out for this exercise here. So just put your attention on that golden ball and just ask for a stream of cosmic energy. And in one moment, it goes from that golden ball that's out beyond Pluto, beyond even whatever other planets are out there. It comes right across the solar system to just above planet Earth and just above your head. And then it starts to flow downward into the top back part of your crown chakra. And if you need to tap back there just to see where that is, it's okay to do that. Bring that cosmic energy down into the crown chakra. And as it goes through the back of your head, it splits into 4 channels. when it gets to the base of your head, and it goes into those 4 channels, 2 on either side of the spine, down the back. And it just flows down the back, your back, until it gets to the first chakra. And when it gets to the first chakra, you're going to take about 15% of that cosmic energy and just let it go down the center of that grounding cord to keep it open and clear. And that cosmic energy makes a little U-turn just underneath the first chakra, picking up 15% earth energy. It can be a little less if 15% is too much. And it comes up the front of the body, 2 channels on either side of the spine in the front, passing each of the chakras, the inner channels touching in with each of the chakras, the first chakra, the second chakra, third chakra, fourth chakra, fifth chakra, behind the 6th chakra, and then it flows upward out of the front top part of your head into a spout like a whale, and just spouts out of your head into your aura. And then it continues to clean out your aura, and it gathers around where your grounding cord is and then goes down your grounding. Give yourself a nice breath. So this is called running the earth and cosmic energy. There's one more part to this, is the outer channels between the 4th chakra and the 7th chakra. Let some of that gather at your shoulders, and it goes across your shoulders, down the centers of your arms to your elbows. And as you bring it down through your forearms, you might want to rub your hands together and place them face up in your lap to open up your hand chakras as that energy flows out in about a 1-foot spout out of your hands. And what that does is, as you know, when you're taking any class, this running energy helps you to clear out energy that might come up that makes you go unconscious or anything like that. And as you run energy, you can always bring in a gold sun. If you start to feel tired, that just means you're releasing a lot of other people's energy. So just for a moment, enjoy running that energy. And I'm going to have you show you one more thing before we get this going here. And that is, bring your attention back to the center of your head with that theater screen in front of you. And would you imagine right on that theater screen a rose, like the flower? It can be any color, like a red rose or something. And would you think of, or just let light up, that's a really better way to do it. Just ask that rose to show you right above the rose a person or a problem that you've had that you'd really rather release out of your space right now. Let's say someone whose energy has been bothering you, or a problem that you've been trying to solve and can't. You know, I'd just like you to be able to remove that out of your space energetically. And you can do that by just dropping that into the rose. And if it's a person and you start to take it really seriously, do something funny with the person, like put him in a Santa suit or turn him upside down, whatever it takes to have a little bit of amusement about seeing this person in your meditation. Just drop them in that rose. And the next part is going to sound weird for some of you, but it's actually very, very neutral. Would you just imagine exploding that rose in a big flash of light? And what that does is that neutralizes that energy or that problem and sends all the energy in a neutral form back to the person who it belongs to, especially if it's not your problem. And even if it is your problem, it helps to de-energize it a little bit. So next time you go to look at it, you might look at it with fresh eyes. And then, as trying to keep this meditation really brief, would you go ahead and create one more big gold sun above your head and call in some more energy? Let's say a quality of energy you'd like to have today. Perhaps some amusement, some joy, some havingness. That's the ability to have whatever you're here to have. And laughter, healing energy, whatever you need, maybe healing energy for something specific. And then just bring that gold sun right into your crown chakra, bring it through all your chakras. And this time we're going to do it just a little faster. Just bring that right on through and let it expand very quickly. And even though you're running the earth and cosmic energy, it works right with these other energies. and goes right to the places down your arms to your hands, filling up your head, neck, and shoulders, your back, and your chest. In all the areas, especially if you brought in healing energy, direct some of the energy to that area of your body. Give yourself a nice breath. And then the final setting of the energy is just, if you would imagine that your crown chakra is that gold. And if you could imagine that there's a gold strip right above your head to match your energy too. This is a way that we can all get in communication, is having our crown chakras at the same color. And gold is a neutral color. It lets you be able to look at things neutrally. And I also like to see gold as the color of the Christ energy. So that is the meditation. Give yourself a nice breath. And after you finish filling up with that gold sun, don't forget to expand that out into your aura. You can just very gently bend over and dump out any excess energy off the top of your head and sit back up again. And give yourself a nice breath. And now when I'm teaching my classes, I usually have people stay in meditation, running their energy like this. So you can do that if you like. But if that's not comfortable for you to do, especially if this is not your style of meditation, that's okay too. You can listen to the questions and answers and everything like that out of trance. But if you would like to try it out, and watch the energy that goes by, because as you are looking at that screen, you're going to see sometimes the pictures that come up, even matching pictures. You know, if I tell you a story, you might remember something very similar, and just be aware of that. And if something bothers you, you can put it in a rose and explode it. All right. Give yourself a nice breath. All right, bud. That's your meditation.
Yay. Thank you, Raphaelle. That was wonderful. I really,
Okay.
really appreciate that.
You're welcome.
It is always a delight. And I know for some people that might be a new experience, and going through the practice of learning how to connect all the dots, how to
Yep.
bring in the cosmic energy, bring up the earth energy, connect that first chakra to the middle of the earth, and allow that energy to continue to run, and learn how to do that so that you can do it anytime.
Yep.
While you're driving a car.
Just as long as you don't go in trance.
Right? Eyes open would be good. Yes.
Yep. Learning it is a lot like, patting your head and rubbing your stomach, but after a while it just becomes old hat in a
Does.
way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And by the way, I do know that on your website you do offer some free psychic tools, including going through this exercise, right?
Yes. We do have the spiritual toolkit, which is I really condense this down. So, when I used to teach it as a 6-week class, just learning the running of the earth and cosmic energy was one class by itself. And for anyone who's never experienced this, it might produce what we call a growth period, where the energy feels really different for a while, but you'll get used to it. It's really a step up in your energy, and you won't be running your energy all the time at first. So don't worry about that.
And I did put some links in the chat here, so people can
Yes.
go ahead and find that. Plus, I put a picture of one that I created many years ago of a demonstration of a person being in the middle of their head grounding.
Oh, there you
So
go. That's
you can
good.
get a little visual
Yeah.
of that as well.
Yep.
So,
And also the spiritual toolkit that we have on the website, our newer website, is done by my late husband, Michael Tamura. That it was a special class that he did just for that.
fantastic.
But
Thank you so much,
I
Raphaelle.
teach that in all my classes, the running energy.
Key tool.
Yes.
It's life-changing. Well, we're here to hear about your spiritual path. I will pass the microphone back to you and
All right.
let you tell us about your experience of your path this lifetime. So thank you,
Okay.
Raphaelle.
Thank you. Well, thank you for being interested. Well, I'm going to start with an introduction of breadcrumbs. You remember this story, the children's story about breadcrumbs in the forest, being able to find your way home through breadcrumbs. And my story actually starts when I was a very small child. Um, there were incidences before the one I'm going to tell you about, but this was the opening for me. I was 5 years old, and I'd had an accident where I busted my head open, was rushed to the hospital with, stitches in the head and all that, which I believe now caused the opening of my third eye. Because shortly after that accident, I had a dream that was so profound that it carried me through my entire childhood and teenage years, and up until the time I was starting to get ready for my spiritual teacher. And the dream was extremely symbolic in nature. And because I was 5 years old, whoever was helping me with this, a spirit guide, and I know which spirit guide it was. When I was a child, I thought it was Jesus because that was the only, spiritual master I knew about, but it wasn't. But during that dream, it was narrated to me what everything meant. And I'm not going to go into what the dream was because it'll take up too much time, but I'll kind of give you a little, you know, walk through with it. First off, the person that was standing behind me was telling me there were three people in a boat with me on a lake with a beautiful mountain and a sunrise in the background. That's the main part of the scenario. And I was told, now I was born the fourth of 9 children in an Irish Catholic family that was also military. And so I wasn't having a really good time in my childhood. It was very difficult. I was the first girl, and there were a lot of boys in the family. And I was told, the first thing I was told was, you have to go through your childhood, and you have business to finish with these 3 people. Now, at 5 years old, only about 6 or 7 of the 9 children were already born. So maybe I have business to complete with the other children. I don't know. I didn't know about them at the time. But but I understood the concept of karma before I ever had the word for it. I was only 5. So the guy said, you have business to complete, but I understood what that meant. And then I was told that when, if you'll just hang in there for a little while longer, when you grow up, you will be a spiritual teacher who's going to be teaching thousands of people. And I like to throw in here that for anybody that knows me, my husband was not included in this, even though he became a very important part of this whole story later. But I was told I was going to become a spiritual teacher. And to me, when I came out of this dream, I thought that meant I was going to become a nun. And I had that concept for a few years. But anyway, I had this dream and was shown these things. And at the end of the dream was like the rainbow behind me in my picture here, there was 2 layers, an array of symbols. There was a rose symbol and a cross symbol and a crown symbol and I don't know what it's called, but that symbol that's now known as the Mason symbol. And a lot of them I didn't even know what they meant. But there was this array of symbols that were shown. And actually, I got to look at those almost longer than the dream itself. And when I woke up the next day, I had such a profound feeling about this dream. But the experience I had for the next 3 days, and anytime I had a big, profound spiritual experience throughout my life until presently, it always lasts 3 days like this. So for 3 days after I had this dream, I actually got to experience myself as an adult. I knew how tall I was going to be, and I knew what it was going to feel like in my body as an adult. And I really, really wanted to tell my mother about this. It's like, I'm not really a child. I remembered I'm not a child in this body. I'm just pretending to be a child. And but a very wise guide of mine came to my ear and said, you better not talk to your mom about it. She won't understand. And I understood why she said that, because when I'd had other spiritual and psychic experiences before this one, every time I ran to my mother to tell her, she would invalidate it. And then I would kind of feel disappointed and walk away and shut down. So I was told, no, don't share this with your mother. This is something you have to keep to yourself. And so I went through my childhood. I spent most of my time taking care of children because my mother worked, as did my father, changing my first diapers as a 4-year-old of babies under me, and going through my childhood and so on. But as I went through my childhood, I would start to forget about this incredible knowingness that I was going to grow up to be some kind of spiritual teacher, which I thought was going to be a nun. And of course, by the time I was 8 years old, I realized, no, I'm not going to be a nun this lifetime. In fact, I'm not even Catholic. I made the decision one day, I'm not Catholic anymore. And I don't have anything against religion. I always felt like it taught me right from wrong. I could have done without the guilt, but it taught me right from wrong, and also introduced me to the Master Jesus, who, I carry in my heart to this day, through A Course in Miracles and many other things as well. So as I went through my childhood, partially as an agnostic, meaning I didn't really believe in anything until something made sense. I would have, if I would really start to forget, I would have this same dream again. And I had it over and over again through my younger years, through my teenage years. And through my teenage years, I started having wide awake astral experiences where I'd go be with someone and then we'd talk about it the next day, kind of thing. So I was developing myself, I guess, naturally. So this is breadcrumbs, just following what I already understood. But as I would go through, the 60s and the 70s, there was a lot of energy during those times, and I was involved in protests and not liking the government too much and all this. And so I would start to forget about my inner life, and I would have the dream again and again and again. And I had that dream over and over again until I was about 22 years old, or 20 years old, actually, when that dream stopped and I started having a dream of someone else altogether. And this is a time, it was very popular back then to record your dreams, even though I remember a lot of my dreams pretty well anyway. But this man started appearing in my dream who I would describe as, I think he looks like he was about the same age as my dad, my dad was born in 1919. And this man, turns out he was born in 1918, so I was pretty close. And he was teaching me things in my dreams every night. And sometimes he would just show up in my dream going by in a bicycle. Or now, I have never gambled in my whole life at a horse track. But in my dream, I'd be gambling at a horse track, and there he'd be talking in my ear about stuff. Sometimes we met in a hospital and we're doing hands-on healing. So it went on and on like this for between the ages of somewhere around 20 years old until about 30 years old, for 10 years. And it was like, I thought this was a spirit guide or something, a dream man. And I finally, one of the things is I also started envisioning, I really, really wanted to have psychic training this lifetime. I don't know where I got that idea, but I started visualizing this really funky looking place on the corner, someplace in San Jose, California. And for several years, that was kind of one of my visions. And I would even visualize it when I was at work, is I wish I was at this psychic place where I could learn psychic stuff. And so one day, or actually in a week's period of time, I had 3 really bad things happen. One was I was in one of the most bizarre car crashes of my life, where I was able to avoid 2 different cars from hitting me, and then another car tried to go head on with me, and I got around that car, and then I got rear-ended really badly. And got my car destroyed, injured my back, all these things. And then I ran over a dog that same week, or the week before, really, because I didn't have a car after that. And also the person I was married to at the time, who was kind of a rock and roll guy, his mother died, who I was really close to. So, and I had an incredible experience with her. So these three things happened just before this one day where I was sitting at my desk. And the person I was married to had a day job too, and he was working across the street from this, what was called an occult bookstore back then, because there were no metaphysical bookstores then. And I always looked for this magazine called Psychic Life magazine, and I had one at work after I had my car accident. And I was looking in this magazine, feeling kind of sorry for myself because my back hurt. And there was an advertisement for this Psychic Institute. And I went, Psychic Institute, what? So I called him up, made an appointment. And when I drove up, it was the exact building I had been visualizing all those years in San Jose. And that's where I ended up getting my training. And I was there for 12 years. I'm going to skip over this part because the 12 years I was at the Institute was a lot of things happened. But I took my clairvoyant training. I took other training, teachers training. I ended up coming together with my husband, Michael Tamura, who is a lot more well known because he was the head of the Institute just under the founder for 20 years. And much later, I came together with him and we founded one of the Psychic Institute. I ended up being a director of a clairvoyant training program and of an institute down in Anaheim. That's where I met Bud, and spent my 12 years there until one day I was teaching a class, and I love teaching classes, by the way. One of my favorite things about teaching the psychic classes is watching people's life change, watching people's eyes open, eyes meaning the third eye especially, and being able to start to be aware of energy and start to be able to be more empowered, which is not a word we used back then too much, was being empowered. But being able to start to have your own energy and your own space and get on with things, even if you were a sensitive person like I was at the time. So as the 12 years came to a close, I was in a class one day and I just heard the voice, well, haven't you learned enough here? And at the time, I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with that organization. But I said, yeah, I really didn't have anything else to learn there. So I told Michael, by that time we were married, and I said, I'm ready to go when you are. But it was another 4 years before he was ready. And we left and started our teachings on our own, which that time ended in 1993. So Bud knew us just 3 years before we left that organization and started teaching on our own. And we taught together first. We taught together, we did readings together, we did everything together until everything got so busy that one of us had to step back to run the business. So I think I sometimes call this my big mistake, but it really wasn't, because I am a service-oriented person. I decided to be the one to step back. Michael was much more charismatic than me in many ways, and he was a wonderful teacher. And if you ever listen to any of his classes, you'll see he laughed a lot. He could get people in stitches over some of the energetic dilemmas we get ourselves into. And he was just a magnificent teacher. So I ended up running our organization, and I taught meditations at the beginnings of most of our classes. But I stepped back from teaching, and we did that from 1993 to 2023. And meanwhile, in about 2006, this is where A Course in Miracles comes in for me. 2006, Michael had his first heart attack. And he was going through a situation where it was taking him a long time to heal. And one of the, let's say, the holes in my training, Course in Miracles ended up filling for me, which was when he went through this long healing process from his first heart attack, and he died from his 9th heart attack. So he had a lot of heart attacks over the years. Uh, I was so upset. I was walking my dog one day in beautiful Mount Shasta, California, where we lived, put my fist up to the heavens and said, "What are you doing?" I was blaming God for this. Why are you doing this to him? He's a man of God. He's this wonderful person. And of course, later on, I would learn that that was wrong thinking. But meanwhile, I was so upset that day because it was just taking him so long. It took him 3 years to heal from that first one. After that, it took him about 6 weeks, even after his triple bypass in 2011. But the first one, he just went through a big thing, and I was having a really hard time with it. And so I'm walking my dog around this 2.5 mile hilly walk, and I ran into one of my neighbors that I never saw. And some of you might know him. His name is Dane Pape. And he saw me, and it was like I hardly ever saw this guy because he's a pro golfer and he was never around. And he said, "What's wrong with you, Raphaelle?" And I told him what was going on. And he says, "Well, there's this book that I think you'll really like." And it wasn't A Course in Miracles, but he was recommending to me Gary Renard's book, Disappearance of the Universe. And at the time I was a bookseller, and I said, I have enough books, and I think I have a copy of that book at my father-in-law's house. I kind of blew him off and went on with my walk. And then later on that day, I went into town and ran into him again, which was so unusual. And so he ran to his truck and got his sister's copy of Disappearance of the Universe and handed it to me. And that got me on. That wasn't the very beginning of my journey with Course in Miracles, because Bud actually talked to Michael and I about it back in the Anaheim days. But this was the beginning of me really starting to be opened to the idea of forgiveness and what this all is, and how to manage the path to ascension, which I've always been very interested in. And in fact, I was so interested in it after, I'm going to back up a little bit. Michael and I spent 7 years in Colorado, and it was after the Institute days. And even though I had picked up A Course in Miracles initially, I opened it up and went, I don't know what this is, and put it to the side. That was back in the days when books on CD were brand new. And I had gone down to the Barnes and Noble and found a 5 CD set done by the actor Richard Thomas that was just bits and pieces out of the Course in Miracles. And I kept that in my car for all the years we were in Colorado after that. And I loved it. And at the time, I didn't really agree with everything. But I always felt more peaceful when I listened to it. So I listened to it a lot. And then when we moved from Colorado to Mount Shasta, which is another incredible story of what happened in that move, that disappeared. And we moved to Mount Shasta in 2003. And then after my husband's heart attack, and about a year later, so 2007, was when I got Gary's book in my hand and got it handed back to me. So, this thing's been chasing me around for many years. So I read Gary's book 3 times, and I also read his other books, but I really liked Disappearance, and I liked all his books. But then I got the CD and listened to his CD 8 times, and on the 8th listen, I was driving from Mount Shasta to Medford, which is about an hour and a half, and the CD player broke. And my guide came in and said, "It's time for you to do A Course in Miracles." So I went, okay. So I put myself through A Course in Miracles. I'm not one to join groups for things like this, so I did it on my own. Then I waited a year, and then I did it again as Michael kept going through all these heart incidences. And it really saved me in a way that, even though I think the practices I was taught with meditation and being able to clear energy out and clear mental image pictures and all the things that I teach for the psychic teachings, and even helping people awaken their psychic abilities, that forgiveness is really next step for someone like me. And I really think that when I was shown in the symbolic dream what my life was really going to be as a spiritual teacher, the I'm not going to say the combination of the two, but what the two have done for me to get me on my own path to seeing the world for what it is, which is an illusion. And also, I had one of the questions I had when I started to do a course is, well, if this is an illusion, why do I bother with readings? And I did several meditations on that. I even talked to Gary Renard about it. And basically, the conclusion I came to was, it was part of my path. I mean, it was part of the breadcrumbs to where I was going. So if I had, for instance, been guided to be a master musician, or as I said in my last interview with someone, a cabinet maker, just because I started to become aware that wood isn't real and trees aren't real or whatnot, I can't still be a good musician or a good cabinet maker. So that's how I was able to kind of work the two together. And so my life led up to, as far as, in the Course in Miracles, one of the things that Gary Renard's guides talk about is that final, the big forgiveness exercise. You have them every day. You stub your toe, you lose a friend, whatever. These are your everyday forgiveness exercises. And then there's the one where the person you love the most dies and you can't save them. That was in October 24, 2023, which is almost 2 years ago. That was my situation with my beautiful husband. Is he, in spite of him having heart disease, in spite of him also having AML, which is the most virulent form of leukemia, he was exercising and, eating a perfect diet. And, he was in better shape than I am now. But he went on the exercise machine on this one day, and I felt it coming for days. And I didn't even say the things I normally say before he got on his exercise machine, which was, don't overdo it, is because I kind of knew this was coming. And yet when it happens, you have to go through that whole thing. And that was probably one of the biggest forgiveness challenges I've ever had. But what I also know is for 17 years of his having heart disease, he prepared me for his passing. And unlike when I lost my first dog and I just lost it for 6 weeks, I didn't feel that way. Of course, I had a lot of grief, and really the hardest thing was kind of keeping my business together that we both had for all those years. And some of the political things that went on. Those were very, the aftermath of when someone dies and people say things to you like, well, Michael's dead, so are his teachings. I actually had people say things like that to me. So, it was just working through all those things and being able to, still have joy in my life and forgive it fully meanwhile. And it still sometimes comes up. But that's the nature of that practice. But I still love to run my energy. I still love to give readings. And my favorite part of readings is being able to help direct someone to look at their spiritual path. And also I give healing in my readings. So, yes, healing is kind of an illusion too. It's more than kind of an illusion, but when a person is given let's say the techniques and the ability to give to someone else, I can give you a gift and you can receive it or not. And that's one of the things I've learned with my psychic practices is someone can have what I have to give or not, and that's okay too. And it's been, even though Michael's passing 2 years ago was very, very difficult, I have been following his example to try and keep all the joy in my life that I've always had, even when he was around. And by the way, he's appeared to me many times in my dreams. Our cat died a month after he did, and he brought the cat to me on the astral. And also, you might want to hear a little bit about what happened with when he passed, the night he passed, I was a little bit mad about it because I didn't want it to happen. That's the second part of grief. There's denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. Well, I got in the anger phase the day after. But when I went to sleep, well, it wasn't the day after, it was 2 days after, because I didn't sleep the first night. The next night, it was an amazing thing where Michael came into a room that was filled with people. And Bud, you might remember the Nevada Oaks Best Western Inn. Yeah. Well, this was a room that was like that, but it was many, many, many times bigger because there were thousands of people there. And like usual, I was in the back of the room with my bookstore, greeting people as they were coming in, and Michael was getting ready to get up to talk. And I even had we've been doing this for so long, we have an advanced group, and quite a few of our advanced people, because we've been doing this for so long, passed over before Michael. And this one lady who was very close to me shows up, and I'm giving her a hug and saying hello to her. And some of our advanced students are walking in going, "Who are you talking to?" And I had to remind everyone, I know you're on the astral, but bring your clairvoyance with you. It's our friend Sue G here, who passed over like 7 years ago. And so we had fun with that. But Michael gave a talk in preparation for people to be ready for him, since his death was very sudden. He died when he was on an exercise machine. We thought he was going to die from the AML, but he ended up dying from the heart thing, and it was sudden and kind of a little bit unexpected, except we had all the warning signs something was coming, lights flashing and all that kind of stuff. But it was very sudden, and people were very grief-stricken. So he gave a really wonderful talk to this large, thousands of people. We didn't have thousands of people come into our events. We had more like 50 or 60 when we went out to do our seminars. And then what he did was he showed everyone where he was going. And the only way I can describe this place is what I know to be as Shambhala. Shambhala is a place where the masters reside, the ones who are in their bodhisattva. They're sticking around to help us evolve here. And what it looked like to me when he showed it to us is a giant, giant, giant version of, for you Star Trek fans, Deep Space Nine. And we even got to go take a tour of this place, and the place that it was the gathering place where spiritual lectures are given on the astral by the masters held millions of people. So that's how big it was. And the thing is, when we went in there, I was very familiar with it because I've been to some of those lectures on the astral. So 2 nights after he passed away, that's what happened. He was saying, okay, sorry about that. I had to go kind of quick, but I'm getting you guys ready. And I could tell a couple of weeks after he passed that he went to that other place because I could feel the energy pulling out. But he still dropped symbols around me all the time. One of the things I asked him not to do is flash lights, because that gives me the creeps. So he brings rainbows on sidewalks where there's no clouds and things like that, hooting owls, or sometimes he shows up in my dreams. One time I was watching TV and I saw his form go right across the screen, like he was walking behind me, which was kind of fun. So he made himself very present for me, and he also started appearing to a lot of our students, and I got tons and tons of emails from people about things that he said and did, and miracles that happened for them because he showed up and that sort of thing. So here it is 2 years later, and one of the things that I wanted to do is continue teaching. And because I stepped back in about probably 1995 and 96, interestingly enough, I had a near-death experience in 96. I now have my chance to, let's say, fulfill any kind of wish I had to be a featured teacher. And so I've made an attempt to create my own teaching, and I've been teaching 2 classes a month, one for advanced students, one for open to everyone, which includes advanced students if they want to come. And I give reading, and I've been giving readings, and I had actually started doing more and more readings for the year before Michael died. So, I kind of got myself online for that. So that kind of brings you up to present with me so many years later. And I am looking forward to, what does Spirit have next for me? Because there's always a miracle somewhere. And whether it's with somebody that comes to me for reading, for instance, I have someone who's been coming to me for reading with this really awful disease. And now she's making the decision to she's looking at making the decision to do assisted suicide, which is legal in her state. And so it went from, okay, I want you to heal me. And it's like, sometimes things can't be healed because the soul needs to go through this. And so then that's this person's path now. And being able to watch her trajectory of her, the actual healing that's happening, and she may or may not do that. Personally, I like this person a lot, so I hope she doesn't do that. But if she wants to, it's great to be able to have the neutrality and the non-judgment to be able to allow someone to have a space like that, as an example. So I know it's a long story, but I skipped over a lot of parts, lots of miracles. Michael and I had a lot of UFO sightings and things like that. And just incredibly miraculous things. He was a great lover of the ocean, and the dolphins loved him. So, it's been a very interesting life. And just because one gets to one's older age doesn't mean it can't still be filled with joy and miracles and wonder. So that's my story.
That's an amazing story. Thank you so much for sharing all that, Raphaelle. I learned a few things there. And I do remember going with the 2 of you to Hawaii and diving with the dolphins, and how much fun that was. Just an amazing experience.
Yeah. The dolphins would just swarm Michael. I mean,
Oh,
they came to me a couple times when we were looking at bringing Michael's boys. He had 2 children to live with us. We were planning on that. And suddenly the dolphins were coming to me with their children and preparing me, I guess. And then that didn't happen. The boys ended up staying with their mom. But, the dolphins were just, just an amazing experience.
well, he could talk to them. He could connect with them. Yeah. That was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Yep. And, there's another part to my story too, which is I ended up with learning how to communicate with animals before animal communication became a thing. And so I'm writing a book about that, which I've never finished, but I'm getting there.
I look forward to reading it.
Yeah.
I know you're a wonderful animal communicator. And I want to hear all about Shanti. I really do.
Yeah. And the other, she reincarnated to be with me 3 times, and Shanti was her 3rd time.
Yeah.
And I got to look at her process of going over to the other side. And it's so interesting because today I had a very close friend of mine call, and her dog just died a couple days ago. And so she goes, where did she go? Where did he go? And so I got to tell her about what I got to see as I've been communicating with Shanti about her adventures in heaven. So Shanti was a beautiful white Great Pyrenees dog who barked a lot.
So sweet. Barked a lot. And drooled.
Yeah. And shed and smelled. Those are the things Great Pyrenees do. They're farm dogs.
Yeah, they're great.
Yeah.
By the way, folks, if you've got questions, feel free to put them in chat while we go. And I've got a couple more questions for you, Raphaelle.
Okay.
The amazing psychic that you are. The course in the Manual for Teachers tells us that there are no unnatural powers, right? And it actually talks about psychic abilities and that type of thing. I'd like to hear from your perspective how we can see these as an extension of our spiritual path as opposed to something to be avoided or worried about.
Well, I never understood the whole thing where some people in the Bible say that it was evil to have psychic abilities, because I've always believed from the time I was a little tiny girl that what we call now psychic abilities are a natural part of our makeup. And it's just most people, I won't say most people, but a lot of people it's shut down, or there some people are using it and just not aware that's part of it. Like for instance, how many times for those of you that work in an office and you've gone to talk to your boss and you go up to knock on the door and then you go, you know what, I better not do it right now for some reason. What caused you to do that? Some part of your intuition, right? We all have that. And even the most so-called atheistic people have that. And, you can put other definitions on it, but it's definitely parts of our intuition or our intuitive knowingness.
Like,
And
who's going to be on the phone before it even rings.
exactly, or what's in the mailbox. That was my fun thing. It's like, it's sometimes not fun to go get the mail because I already know what's in there. And by the way, one of the things that I've had the honor to experience after doing A Course in Miracles for so long is those momentary experiences of the oneness. And I love it so much. And, the one time I had it, I was driving my car with Michael. We were going to his son's wedding in 2022, I think. It might have been 21, 22. It was the year before he died. And he was ill, so he was sleeping. So I'm driving from where we live up here down to Southern California, and he was sleeping. It was a beautiful day. There's what do you call it? One of those airplanes that's putting the stuff on the crops to keep the bugs out.
Crop duster. Yeah.
Crop duster, yes. It's just a typical day on Highway 5, right? And all of a sudden, I'm in that state. I'm Michael, I'm the car, I'm the guide up there, I'm the freeway over ramp that I see up ahead. It was just an amazing experience. But there's also that same sense that I had when I was a little girl and I experienced myself as an adult, is kind of knowing that you're pretending. This whole thing is pretending. And recently I've even heard people with their near-death experience talk about, once you're out there, it just feels kind of like a dream back there. And that's what, as you start to have that oneness experience, it is a dream. But because of the let's say the path I've taken this lifetime, ending up with a guy for 37 years who was just made out of joy, I still enjoy having joy in my life. And, except for the period of time where I had to go through my grieving process when he passed, I have wanted nothing but to continue having joy and sharing it with others. And because Michael had such a big personality, and he mastered that before I ever knew him. And, I've only come into that. I'm a much more shy and introverted type of person compared to him. But, I just absolutely, I hope I take this all the way to the moment I do let go of my body, because in a way, it's the only way to be. Yeah.
It is. Being fully present in the now,
yeah.
appreciating the beauty of life, the joy of life, the joie de vivre, right?
Yep.
And it is that he said to us over and over and over again. That was a
Yep.
constant message. And
Yep.
you too, you've said the same thing over and over again.
Yep.
So this idea of developing psychic abilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
I know for a lot of people, they feel like, this is a calling for them. For some, it's just, oh, by the way. And for some, they don't even exercise that muscle. What kind of advice would you give someone so they could start opening up to their intuition?
Well, that's a question my mom asked me when I was first into this. And first into it, I'd say 3 years in. And I was really, really loving learning about my abilities and how they worked and how to use them in a sense that's not for selfish purposes, but for my own spiritual development. And so she says, well, how do you do this? How do you start? And, the answer I came up with for her is just paying attention, being present, noticing things, now there's an extreme end of this because I've been around a long time. I've run into these kind of people where they pay attention so much they become con men, right? So, but if you look at any con man or woman, usually they're pretty psychic too. But that which is hilarious because just to go on a little side trip, when I was living in Mount Shasta, once I went to the local Rite Aid one time to pick up something. It wasn't for a prescription, but I passed around the back of the store and there's this guy there in a Boulder hat with a little girl, just like that one movie, with the guy that sold Bibles but con people. That's what they look like. And that was my first thought is, wow, that looks like a con man over there. That's what we psychics do. We just kind of read the energy. So I go buy my purchase and I get in my car and as a female, I get in the car and I lock the car. It's just what we do, right? And right after I locked the car, I heard this rattling and I had a big SUV on the other side of my car at the back seat. And it's the guy trying to get in my car with his little girl in hand. And he didn't see me because I'm kind of small. So I turned around and looked at him and he's like, oh.
Oh
Yeah.
my.
Yeah. But anyway, so, people can use paying attention as far as, oh yeah, I can see if that person isn't paying attention to their wallet or whatever, I can steal it, right? But I'm talking more about just paying attention to everything. And when you start to develop yourself on an awareness level, you can be aware behind you, in front of you, like a mother with her eyes on the back of her head for her kids, right? That's sort of a survival tool for her. But when you start to become more aware, nothing can surprise you as far as, somebody sneaking up behind you, like my older brothers like to do, boo, around the corner. But being aware and paying attention and noticing things. If you look at someone, sometimes you can see the lights are on, but no one's home. The spirit is nowhere near the body, not running it. And sometimes it's another spirit in there, that kind of noticing. So paying attention is the beginning. And, for some of you who've been through maybe some beginning psychic classes, you might have had that exercise where you put your hands together and can feel the energy between your hands. Yeah, anybody can do that. There's the energy. Your hands produce a lot of energy and you can feel it. And then being able to feel someone's aura. And, then it goes on from there. But the beginning part is just paying attention. And so my mom, my parents used to be really upset about, oh, are you in this cult or what's going on? But as Michael and I went on over the years, she came back to me, and I don't hardly ever talk about my mom, by the way, so this is kind of a new thing for me. But she really liked what she saw in what my husband and I ended up doing, and she would talk to her priest about it. And she was afraid the priest was she told me this later, she was afraid the priest was going to say, oh, she's the work of the devil, all that kind of stuff. And he said, I'd love to meet your daughter. So there you have it. And just to give you one more example on that, I was at one of my younger brother's wedding early on in my training. I think I was still in the clairvoyant training course at the time. And I went from California to Vermont where my brother lived. And we were in a Catholic church. And I thought when Michael and I were sitting down, this is when I was learning, and we were told we can experiment as long as you don't hurt anybody. So I decided to bring the church's energy up to that Christ gold. And I didn't do anything with my hands. I was just sitting there bringing the energy up. And there's two priests sitting at the side. It was before the wedding. And one of them got my attention and went like this, don't mess with our energy, basically. So you don't think those priests get some kind of training like that?
Of course.
Yeah. So I left it alone, and I learned that even when I worked in offices, when I would come to my a job I would have, and I'd do all this energy work to make the office real nice for me, then I would be called into the principal's office, so to speak, and yelled at for nothing. And I realized the guy that yelled at me was the head. It was in a big one of the big 8 accounting firms. And basically, he didn't like that I changed the energy, but what was coming out of his mouth was nothing. I did nothing wrong, and he couldn't find fault with me, but he was kind of yelling at me about something. And so I learned that I could set the energy that I liked of my cubicle in that office, but not the whole office. It was a great lesson. So these are the things you learn when you work with energy. And, working with energy is like working with anything in this world. Of course, I know it's an illusion. But if I were a bricklayer, bricks are an illusion too, but I could still build a house here, right?
Mm.
So that's how I view that, is I love being able to work with the unseen and also to look at the bigger picture. And that's one of the things I like to look at in readings. What is the bigger picture of who you are? Not just this person who works in some office somewhere thinking you're nobody kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, that's the meaning of clairvoyant, right? Clear seeing.
Yep.
The big picture. Yeah. Yeah. Well, just because the Course says, and I've been grappling with this for decades, the Course says it's an illusion, doesn't mean it isn't important. And there's a balance there for Course students. They have to recognize that, okay, from one perspective, that's one of the big concepts that are a stumbling block for a lot of people when they study the Course is, well, what do you mean this is an illusion? And you get all kinds of different thoughts about that. Well, then, why should I do anything at all? What's the significance of being here? And that's where a lot of my own work really came into fruition. And that kind of leads me into the next question I want to talk about, and that's past lives, right? So I had a very eye-opening experience as a young man, as a teenager, on past lives being opened up to me and recognizing them. It was very startling, but it became just, oh, okay, so I've been that. And that, you talk about tossing out any concept of gender preference or racism, waking up to your past lives will do it, because we've all been all the flavors. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people have a hard time getting their head around that one. But the reality is it's so invigorating, and so realizing how important it is to stay focused in the now, right now. Even though we have this wealth of information available, here is where we're really doing our learning right now in this moment. So I'd love to have your take from both an ACIM and a psychic clairvoyant perspective on past lives.
Well, first off, we're all the sum total of everything we've ever been, so-called. And, the way when I give readings and a past life comes up, it's usually a lifetime that's unresolved. So I call it an overlay. This lifetime is overlaying. Let's say you have a bad relationship with your mother, and this is a continuation of something you were working out. And again, some people call the illusion the matrix. And I kind of get that, because I had an experience once where I was laying on the couch and everything turned into numbers around me. So I actually got to see, like the numbers on the computer up and down. Like
sure,
that.
Yeah. Well, you mean Matrix, the documentary? Yes.
No, Matrix,
the movie. I'm teasing.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're in this matrix, and it's the way I always saw past lives is it's in a way it's a continuation, and each lifetime is a chapter. But it's knowing that it's illusory, it's knowing that each chapter of whatever lifetime we had was part of our learning and growing experience as human souls. And why did we choose to be here? Some people say we're the fallen angels and we did bad and went against God and all this. And in the Course in Miracles, let's say the story might be that we decided to separate from God for a time. That's how I see it. And time isn't really real, but we're in time, so we understand time when we're in bodies. when we're out of bodies, there is no time. I've had a near-death experience where I got to the one little near-death experience I had back in about 1995 or so, where, by the way, I was told in that near-death experience that I was done. I was done with everything I came to do. And I was given the choice to go over. And I just stood there because I felt so neutral. I couldn't even think of making a decision until someone whispered in my ear, "What about this work that you promised to finish with Michael?" Boom, I was back in my body, and I had been really, really ill for that time. But I'm coming back around to past lives. What's the difference between having a near-death experience than dying and coming back? It's really the same thing, right? Except you're doing this with the same illusory body, so to speak. When Michael had his near-death experiences, every time it was different for him. The first or second time, he had this council of 12 beings that instructed him, you can choose to go back or not, just like I was in the 90s. And they felt that he would do a lot more. He could do a lot more if he came back. So he came back, but talk about ill. He also had this problem called gout. And he had this thing called traveling gout, which was all over his body. It was the most painful. I've never seen anyone in so much pain in my entire life. So as he was coming back to his body from that near-death, that was a near-death experience for him. That was his first near-death experience before his first heart attack. He told them, well, what about this gout problem I have? So they gave him instructions to look up something on the computer, which gave him the help he needed at the time. But it was let's say about a 4-month process to get him out of that thing that he was in. So with past lives, I don't really get too hung up on past lives. I was part of a reincarnation group for a while, and I was kind of appalled to see people's egos get caught up on, who they were. And they would, people would come up to you at a party. Who were you in a past life? I like to say nobody. Probably one of my teenage or early 20s experience with remembering a past life was when I was in my more atheist, not atheist, but not really believing anything stage, where I had a dream where I was working. It was during Jesus's time. I was working in a Roman household. I was about 12 years old. I had this big head of red hair, and Jesus visited that household. And I remember running around telling everybody that he was coming, and I could see him through this little peephole by the door, him coming down the sidewalk. So, that told me I lived during the time of Jesus. And later I got a reading from my friend James Van Prague, who said, that that was true, that at least as true as the illusion can be. That was my exposure to him, and that also I had a connection with Saint Mark, where I had a accident when Michael and I were in Egypt, and I was thrown off a camel, for real, in this lifetime, and
Ow.
I got knocked out and injured. It was the first day of third day of a 21-day trip. And I thought I was going to have to go home because I was I had a really bad whiplash kind of thing. And this is where my tools of running energy really helped. Is Michael took me, I'm not going to go in the whole story, but he took me back to the boat because we were doing the up the Nile thing. And he went to dinner and I went to bed. And I was in so much pain, he actually had to hold my head because you use all these muscles to lay down. I didn't even know until I hurt my neck like that. And he came to bed about 9 o'clock. I vaguely remember him coming in. And then I woke up about 1 or 2 in the morning, and I was in so much pain. But I crawled out of the bed, and we had a tiny little chair in this tiny little room that we had. And I sat in that chair and I ran my energy like I had you guys do. I ran my energy for 2 hours. And I felt a lot better and was able to get out of some of that pain. And then I remembered right at the end of my meditation session that before this was a trip with 89 psychics to Egypt. So it was a group of meditating people back in I think it was 88 or 89. Anyway, what we did before these trips was we would get together every so many weeks to prepare for, what we were going to run into energetically and to be able to, so we could really have the trip. So I remember that during one of those gatherings, and they were running us through meditations, they recommended that we create what's called a mock-up, which is basically visualizing what you'd like and sending it up to the universe so that you can have that. And the mock-up I made was, well, I'd really like to have a miracle during this trip. Well, be careful what you ask for when you ask for things. Anyway, I was going back forward to, okay, I'm running my energy in the middle of the night after I got thrown off this camel. And I remembered I'd made this mock-up for a miracle. So as I was finishing my meditation, I said, okay, Spirit, if I have that miracle coming, I'd sure like to get this thing cured because I'd like to be on the rest of this trip. So that was the end of my meditation. I filled myself up with a gold sun and was able to get myself into bed, which was kind of a miracle. And then the next second, I was standing up next to the bed again. And I thought, oh, okay. And I looked at the door, and in these boats, the little rooms are very tiny. But I looked at the door and I decided I'm just going to walk through that door, which I did. And I went down the hall, and this boat was several decks, which had this beautiful stairway with a very polished wood. Somebody was always polishing it all day long. Well, it was the middle of the night. No one was in the hallways. I could see the lights by everybody's room. Then I went to the area where the stairway was, and I ran into someone, and that person said to me, what's going on, Raphaelle? And I said, I'm not feeling so well, and I'd really like something to be done with my neck. And again, I feel like I'm actually awakening my body while I'm doing this. And she said, go up the stairs. Now the stairs went up, made a turn, and then another turn and up like this. She said, go up the stairs, make that turn, but don't make the second turn. Instead, go through that wall, look to the left, and you'll see a stairway going up, and you'll find St. Mark up there. And he'll give you a healing. And I'm okay. So I walk up the stairs, and I could feel this polished wood. It was so real, quote unquote. It was so real. Walking up the stairs, I walked through the wall. I found the other stairs. But before I went up those stairs, I looked where I was, and it was like being underneath in a mall parking lot that's empty. It was dead silent. When you're on a boat, there's all this noise, this dead quiet. And it was beautiful and white and just clean. And then the stairway to the left was about maybe this wide. It was very narrow, and it looked like old cement. So I went up the stairs. As I'm going up the stairs, the door opens, and there's this very tall man with dark hair and a beard. And I'm looking at the bottom of a Catholic baptismal font that's oval in shape. And I see this man, and he goes, what are you doing here? And I go, well, somebody down there told me that, are you St. Mark? And then I realized how silly that sounded. And he said, yes, I am. I said, well, somebody down there told me that you could give me a healing on my neck. And he sort of smiled and said, did you bring it with you? And I realized when he said it, he was talking about my physical body. And I realized at that moment I was not in it. And I looked down through the boat, and I could see my physical body represented as a Roman column. And I said, I think it's too heavy to bring up here. And the next moment, I was back in my body looking up to the ceiling. And I thought, well, that was interesting. Let me check it out. And I sat up, and my husband's sleeping right there quietly. I sat up, and I kind of went like this and went, okay. I turned to the left, which I couldn't do. I turned to the right, then I did it really fast a bunch of times. And then, of course, I woke him up and told him what happened. And I was able to take the rest of the trip. And I only had a tiny, tiny, tiny little, just a thing that I could feel that was a remembrance of my fall off the camel. But I was able to do everything on that trip. So there you have.
Nice miracle.
Yeah. So, but the Saint Mark character also, I've seen pictures of the Master Maitreya, sure looked an awful lot like him. So who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. So we do have some of our standard questions. We also have a question in chat. Why don't we do the question in chat before we get to our normal ones? And that is Don's asking about UFO contact experiences around Mount Shasta, which is well known for its connections to all kinds of different energies.
Yep. Well, probably some of our neighbors had better experiences than we did. We could go up there and conjure up the UFOs anytime. Go up there, especially after sundown, and just go up there and go, okay, we're ready, and then they'd show up. And they were very distant. The best UFO experience we had personally was in the middle of the night in Mount Shasta, where Michael went out to take our dog for her last going to the bathroom, and he came running back in to get me. And there was in the sky, we've seen the other UFOs, triangles and circles and, the whole thing. Well, this one, it was, I can't even describe the quality because it wasn't like metal, but it was in the shape of, if you look at any Christmas card that you've ever gotten that has the Star of Bethlehem with the rays and all that kind of stuff and the circle in the middle. It was light turquoise in color. It was gigantic, and it just hung in the sky right over our street, not a couple 100 feet. And it just sat up there. And it just felt so good. And of course, it was about, 10 degrees out there that night. Even with my jacket on, I didn't want to hang out for too long. And every time we saw UFOs, I never had the presence of mind to take pictures of them. But that one was the most beautiful. And I always felt like, Mount Shasta is known as the astral meeting place for the Masters of Wisdom sometimes, just like some of the other vortex areas of the planet. Some of our neighbors had UFOs chasing them down the road from the Bunny Flat up there, which is one of the viewing points or the area above that.
Bunny Flat, yeah.
Yeah, one of our neighbors' set of roommates were chased down the hill by a UFO that scared them, and there were military people, so there's that thing. But also, Michael's kids were camping with their stepdad up there 2 different times, where they were up there camping, and the light would flood their tent. They'd go out of the tent, and they'd see the UFOs going right into the mountain all night long. And we never got to see that. But, another thing that goes on up there, being that we lived up there 15 years, is people would get those night goggles, and they said the alien people are all over the place. And I decided, since I lived up there, I didn't really want to quite see them yet. So I never went to one of the night goggle parties. But rumor had it, and there were people all over town that talked about, oh yeah, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
So, and then one time we did a lot of events in Mount Shasta, and one time one of our students during the daytime before our event started, she was walking down or driving down the street right where our office was, which was on Elma Street. If you know Mount Shasta, it's one of the side streets. And right across the street from us was a little grocery store and a phone booth, which don't even exist anymore, I guess. But she was driving down the street, and she saw a woman who had her glasses on her head and had the big, giant eyes. And they caught each other's eyes. And she said the woman went, that was Gail Smith, the woman took her sunglasses and put them down over her eyes. So, it has been rumored that, the people live under Mount Shasta. I never saw them, but you can feel a lot of presences around there. Also, I had an encounter, my second encounter with one of the reptilian beings right in my bedroom, right when we first moved to Mount Shasta. So, you got duality here, right? So you got the really high level masters, and then you got these other guys, and I had to deal with that too, and learned how to do that. So if anybody wants to know about that, I'll tell you in private. But it was an interesting experience as well. So you can get any kind of experience up there. Some people go up there and they have Mother Mary experiences, they have alien experiences. Maitreya, yeah. Well, the masters meet up there. There was a guy that used to do conferences that was all about the masters, and we always knew when he was there because he was conjuring them up all the time. And because we lived on a bump on the side of the mountain, they would just come right through our house when that was happening. So,
an energetic highway.
It was very interesting to live there. And some people would say, oh, your house has this and your house has that. And, you're on top of the roots of a volcano, so there's all kinds of different energies there. And it is very much of a vortexual energy, but you have to, just like when you go to Hawaii, very similar. In Hawaii, you got to be careful what you wish for because you're going to get it. So if you're wishing negative things, that's going to happen. And I also saw that in Mount Shasta happening with a lot of people. And so one of the things I really like about A Course in Miracles, kind of bringing it back around to that, is you learn how to, in a way, control your thinking to a better place. And, if you're not always having opinions about other people that's negative or spewing out all the complaints you have in your brain, which just surrounds you with all that negative energy to have negative experiences, then you're going to have more positive experiences. You start to bring in more either neutrality or just very, upbeat energy. And being around Michael all those years, it was almost always upbeat. Even when he was having his heart attacks, he was joking with nurses and, it was crazy. And the doctors.
Classic Michael.
Yeah.
So you've told us about your path.
Yep.
And really appreciate that. And you talked a little bit about the holy instant and that experience of the divine. Is there anything else you wanted to add about that?
Well, mostly that anyone who's on the path to just keep following the breadcrumbs, follow your intuition, and trust your intuition, because I think the intuition is really connected with the Holy Spirit and never steers us wrong. Whenever I've had an intuitive hit that was, maybe you shouldn't do that, and then I do it anyway, I always get the lesson that goes with it. So follow the breadcrumbs.
Follow the breadcrumbs. So when you are connected with the divine, when you're in that place of meditation and oneness and experience, what does it feel like to you? What's going on for you in that place?
It just feels like pure joy. And what more could you ask for in that? And it feels like truth. The one thing I think, having a bunch of brothers and living in this life of duality where people lie to you so much is, I became kind of a truth hog. I just want to know the truth. And when you ask for it enough, you're going to get it. And the thing is, are you ready for it? And let yourself be prepared for what the truth is. Don't be disappointed by it.
Well, and one of the things that you have taught me is being able to tell a truth from a lie.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very important ability.
Yes.
Yeah, very important. So you've mentioned a few of them, but we'd love to hear, I know, especially being in front of the whole world clairvoyant, you must have had a lot of challenges on your path.
Well, I think the main challenge happened in my childhood and growing up years. because the one thing I didn't mention in this talk, and if you hear me do other talks, I usually do mention this. I grew up with a family of geniuses, Mensa Society, rocket scientists and so forth. And and they were mostly towards the Catholic or, Christian church thing. But the thing is, there wasn't really room in a family for someone like me. And when my youngest sister came in, there was room for two of us because she also ended up getting clairvoyant training as well. And she hasn't dedicated her life to it as I have, but she uses it just like I would use A Course in Miracles, as part of her guideline to where she goes. But mostly being a really sensitive person, growing up in a very insensitive group of people, if you will, was the difficult part for me. But I appreciated it later because I had a lot of different kinds of jobs over the years, and it taught me to be tough. Taught me to, having 6 brothers helped me to be rough and tumble in this world. I could punch him with the best of them until I learned I didn't have to. So,
Well, I totally get that, and I understand that ongoing challenge.
yeah,
And I've often equated it to fear. People can automatically, wait, you're a psychic, and then be afraid of you. Have you had that experience?
yes, I have, but it's never bothered me too much. I've
Right.
seen people be more afraid of Michael than me because, he has such a big personality. But the other thing is, when you can see people are afraid, oh, you're going to see all my secrets. Well, our answer to that was, we don't care about your secrets. They're kind of boring. So most of the challenges I think I've had have been just regular life things like
Sure.
seeing your husband get sick or that kind of thing, and being able
Yeah.
to work with the regular life experiences that one has with the awakening process.
Yeah.
And it's been thrilling. I don't think I do a single thing differently than I did this lifetime, even though some of the decisions I made, especially early on, weren't so great, just like most of us. Well,
Well,
maybe,
those are our lessons, right?
yeah, that's right.
Those are our lessons. So along that same line, then, what do you love about your path?
Everything. I'm
Everything.
really, really happy. For instance, one of the things that I realized when I was 11 years old, when I was reading a book on Madame Curie and about her and Pierre Curie, they're the ones that developed X-rays and they were
Hmm.
scientists together. I had this
Yes.
dream of having a husband who did the same thing as me. I grew up in a 1950s household where the father worked and the mother stayed home until she went to work too. And, I wanted to do something together with the person I was going to be with. And it took me a few tries. And so I was married twice before. The first time to a really wonderful man who was a forester, and the second guy was a rock and roll guy. And interestingly enough, the second guy died a year before Michael did. So,
Oh,
whatever if my path were with him or with Michael, I would have been a widow around the same time. But
interesting.
yeah, I thought it was too. And, being able to really embrace the fact that we're not perfect,
Right.
and that when we make mistakes, we can always forgive. If nothing else can be fixed, if somebody can't have a I'm sorry or whatever, that you can still let it go and let it be.
Forgiveness
And
is for you, not the other
that's
person.
right. Because I remember, especially as a sensitive person, if something really terrible happened, like somebody turned their, a couple times in my life, someone would just turn their back on me and just decide not to be my friend. And that was devastating for me. And it would take me a long time to get over it. And
Yeah.
finally, as I've learned to work with this, being able to let someone do that and be okay and still love them, that's what a big freedom that is if something hurt you, that it doesn't have it that sting can be for a minute or two instead of for 5 years or 10 years or a lifetime.
Totally understand that. So let's get down to practical aspects. Do you have a spiritual practice that you do on a regular basis?
Well, I've been thinking about this question for a long time, and I can say I meditate a lot, but some people meditation, it's not for them. And the thing that I've been able to bring into my life that is, I think, the most important spiritual practice is just letting myself be aware all the time and not become, unaware or spaced out. Even when I'm relaxing, being aware and noticing things. I'll be sitting there, I like some TV shows. I'll be sitting there watching a TV show, and here comes, a certain person in my space. And it's like, oh, hi, certain person, what are you doing there? We'll have a little communication. Next day, I'll get a phone call from them. Just really letting your ultra awareness, if you will, that you get as you do practices be a part of your everyday life. So the other thing is never let joy go out of your life. When I think I was just mentioning that a minute ago, is when someone used to hurt me, it would take me a long time to get over it. And I realized one of the feelings I would have is life is never going to be the same because this happened. And that's just not true. No matter how bad it gets, no matter what kind of a bad mistake you make, or, you get fired from a job, or you do something really embarrassing, it's just stuff. And you don't have to let it ruin your life. So, keeping that joy in your life, keeping that childlike wonder in your life. That's what I like to do.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Come as a child.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the other things that I felt was really important that I learned was this idea of an energized picture. And Michael would talk incessantly about the pictures that we've energized and how when we look at pictures in the past, if they have no energy, you can just look at them objectively and say, okay, that's what happened. That was that situation, whatever. But when we've locked in our often self-judgment or judgment of others into that picture, we've energized it. And that whole process of how do you let that go? How do you turn the dial down? How do you release that energy? How do you blow that picture so that it no longer now has an energetic impact on you?
Right. And that was the little example I gave at the beginning about putting that problem in a rose or putting that picture in a rose. Whenever you have an experience, energetically, it's in that form of a little mini movie. So when you think of it like your 12th birthday, or what stupid thing you did last week, or whatever it is, it has that little bit of energy, but you look at it and it becomes like a little movie it's what you remember. It comes right up on your screen. So those of you that think you're not clairvoyant, you all have the ability. It's just, those pictures come and come and come all the time. And it's just the ones that have stuck energy in them that Bud is talking about, where you take that, you put it in a rose. You can minimize it like you do a picture on a camera, on a phone, just minimize it, put it in a rose, explode it, take the energy out. Then it's just an experience. You don't want to get rid of the experience. You work very hard to go through that experience. It's just part of what you're here to go through and learn through. And then if it comes up again and you've taken a sufficient amount of energy out of it, then it's just an experience. Oh yeah, that happened.
That happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I went through the death of my husband, where I couldn't save his life because it happened in our house with just me here, I didn't think I would ever be able to blow that picture. But of course I did. And now,
because you have the tools to do it.
Well, and also the incentive to practice it, because I know that it works.
Yes.
So, another easy way of saying it is just letting it go and letting it be what it was.
And it's easy to say those words.
It
But the
is.
actual doing of it is a whole nother story.
Right. And it, it is a lifetime of practice too. For some people, it's going to be easier. And if you're super sensitive and you get your feelings hurt really bad by people, I used to be like that. And sometimes I still get my feelings hurt. But when you realize, oh, yeah, that whatever that was just hit some kind of thing within me, then I can just release it. And then you're not ruminating about it for the next 10 years or whatever.
It's not affecting your life.
Right.
Very importantly. Yeah.
That's where you
All right.
bring the joy in.
That's right. There's always room for joy.
Yep.
So, how would a new seeker join you on this path and learn these skills that you've touched on so beautifully in our talk today?
Okay. Well, I'm teaching 2 classes a month, and the one that's available to the public is my Open to Everyone classes, which the next one is on Saturday, October 4th, coming up. And I'm going to be talking about spirit communication because it's close to Halloween. But if you want to go, we have several websites. One of them we're going to be shutting down soon. We, meaning my assistant and I. I oftentimes talk about my work as we, as in Michael and I, because I still feel like he works with me quite a bit. Our current up-to-date site is livethemiracle.com.
And it's in chat.
Livethemiracle.com. Thank you very much. And there's also, if you want to look at our old website, which I'm taking down at the end of the year, it's michaeltamura.com. And that's Tamura. And what you'll see on that website, on the Live the Miracle website, is the current classes I'm teaching. And then we're putting up a lot of Michael's teachings up there. So if you are interested in touching in with him, there's single classes and whole classes that you can take. And then we have one of the things that we had, which was a requirement for our advanced students, was a course that we did for 21 months called Spiritual Tools and Life Mastery Practices for Living Your Soul's Purpose. Big, long title. We also call it the Levels course because I know there's no such thing as levels, but we did it in 6 parts. And if anyone finishes that, then they can join our advanced group called SHAPE, which is Seers and Healers Advanced Practice Experience. So that website has pretty much everything that we're putting up, some of Michael's past stuff. And since Michael has only been passed for 2 years, he started this website as his legacy site when he got his leukemia. And so we're continuing to put things up. But the big course is up there. And there's probably in several places our office phone number if you are interested in getting a reading. I don't know if you want me to say that on this.
No, it's fine.
Okay. My assistant's number is 530-926-2650. And my readings are 2 hours on Zoom, recorded, and I charge $500 for it. So, and some people ask me why I charge that much. It's 40 some years of experience. If that helps. And that's
readings.
how I make my living. But I love teaching the classes, and my classes, my beginning classes are fun. They're 2 hours long, and then we have a little break, and then about an hour and a half to 2 hours after chat. So you'll get to talk about what you experienced in the class or ask questions afterwards.
Fabulous.
So those are. Oh, also, Michael and I did a radio show, a podcast for 5 years called. Don't mix this up with livethemiracle.com, but the podcast was called Living the Miracle with Michael and Raphaelle Tamura. And it was on voiceamerica.com, but it's not on there anymore. My webmaster is little by little putting it up on Michael's YouTube channel. So some of them are available there, or if you want to go on YouTube and just look up Living the Miracle with Michael and Raphaelle Tamura, you can start to find the episodes there. And it was an hour-long show. And the funny thing about that show is the early ones we did, Michael had an incident with his heart device where they had to replace it, and it damaged his voice right before we started the radio show. So for the first couple of years, he said his voice sounded like a Italian mafia guy. And it was funny because my voice got funky too during that time. So go figure. But we had a lot of fun. To me, that was one of my favorite things to do with him in our teaching, was that radio show. We did a lot of preparation work. We didn't make any money doing that show. In fact, we had to pay money for the podcast. But we've gotten a lot of really good feedback for that show. So those are free to listen to.
It's got a lot of fun and joy in it.
Yes. It's free to listen to. So, if you want to check that out too, that's another way you can touch in with us.
Yeah, a lot of good teachings.
Thank you.
So, Raphaelle, thank you so much for joining us today. This has been absolutely a delight.
Thank you.
My pleasure deeply. And I thank you for a lifetime of insight. And I know that's true for everyone else who's ever had that experience of really understanding what it looks like to look through your eyes at the world, which are beautiful, bright eyes. So
thank you. Well, it was my honor to be here, Bud, and thank you so much for what you're doing here with this group and what you're teaching as well. I think that's fantastic.
Well, we have some beautiful bright lights at the seminary.
Yep, that's what
amazing.
I hear.
Very, very humbling, very amazing.
Yep.
So with that, we'd like to say thank you, everyone, for joining us at The Seeker's Compass, and we will call this a day. Take care. Blessings to all.